Wake up the white noise. Ooh, ooh. Oh, what's going on, guys? How's it going? It's your friendly neighborhood Katsumoto. And today I'd like to talk to you about perfectionism. Learning Japanese and perfectionism. Specifically, SRS, do you like the sound of me swallowing? SRS card, yeah, swallow that. SRS card format perfectionism. Now, how did I get into this? How did I get into talking about this? I was cooking breakfast today because I'm a man. Making breakfast, and I just remembered a time when one time I had two female friends over, and they're like, yeah, I'm hungry. Like girls do the thing of infantilizing themselves and act, and you may or may not find it cute. But anyway, they're like, yeah, I'm hungry, feed me. So I made something, and it took some work to do. It wasn't my best work, I'll admit that. I will admit, it wasn't like, the most amazing dish. I did make it, and I made it, and they didn't like it. They were like, this isn't... and I was so PO'd. I don't know why, but I was so PO'd, I chucked it in the bin, just like really angrily too, like a housewife, like a passive-aggressive housewife. And was I justified in being angry at it? Maybe, maybe not. But I think my reaction was a sign of something, a deeper underlying issue with me. It's always been there, which is I am a bit of a perfectionist, right? Believe it or not. You're like, your work is so crap. Yeah, but I want it to be perfect. So perfectionists understand, right? So, and one of the tool that saved me from perfectionism, got me from, you can't have perfection, you can have excellence. What got me from perfectionism to excellence is the SRS and this idea. A guy called Chris Hauser introduced me to the SRS Super Memo, which is, I believe, the first software SRS ever made, right? At least consciously, whatever. Anyway, so and ever made, and released and released in commercialized, and probably ever made too, whatever. Anyway, and so it's like, you can either remember 100% of 100 kanji or 90% of like 4,000 kanji, right? Which do you pick? Obviously the latter, right? And that's the SRS promise. Now, having said that, though, there is this thing. I know I've talked or written about this before, but it's worth talking about again. There is this. I remember in uni, in college, one of my friends is like, he had this idea that there's a certain personality that's drawn to learning Japanese, right? What I mean is, you can either come to Japanese by choice or by accident. And so those of us who come to Japanese by choice, there's a certain personality, right? I think that's true. Like people who come to Spanish by choice, going to Spanish by choice, tend to be, I don't know, kind of like more, relaxed, open, friendly. They tend to not be perfectionists. And I think people who are drawn to choose Japanese as a language of choice rather than one of accident do tend to be perfectionists. And so one thing I see is people trying to perfect their SRS card format, right? They're trying to get the perfect format, and they won't let themselves move forward unless they get the format perfect. Now, it seems like a wonderful thing. Well, obviously, it's not a terrible thing, but it seems it's from a good place, right? It's this idea of, I have to get this right. Once I get this down, it'll be fine. Now, let me explain to you why that's a bad thing. First of all, let's talk about marathons. Can you lose a marathon because of a pebble in your shoe? Like, can one tiny thing in comparison to like your entire body ruin everything? Yes, it can. Okay, now. So it can. So you think, maybe if I just get one thing wrong or right in my SRS format, card format, that's gonna change everything. That's gonna be the difference between me getting used to Japanese. Watch the word choice. Getting used to Japanese, me not getting used to Japanese, and that's simply not the case. Let me explain. Sure, if you have a pebble in your shoe and you're running a marathon, please take it out. It will affect you. But here's two things you don't do. One, once you discover there's a pebble in your shoe, you don't stop, take it out, then go back to where it started and rerun that part so you get a proper time, right? No, you just keep running from where you found it. That's number one. Thing number one. Thing number two, you do not turn your entire training regimen into a search for pebbles, right? You don't spend just every day, spend 5 hours making sure there's no pebbles in your shoes. It's a quick, you just get it out, get it done. It's an obstacle that can have huge effects, but ironically, you don't waste time on it that much, right? Similarly with Japanese, the thing is to get used to Japanese, and so what's going to really affect you is the amount of exposure of Japanese you have, not necessarily the perfection of not at all actually, the perfection the perfection of the formatting of your card, right? So one thing I advise you really not to do is to try to make all the cards in your SRS deck perfect. Just have, if you want to run an experiment, just make a new deck, make a separate deck. In that deck, do things the new way in that new deck. And again, this is something I've written about before, but it's worth talking about again. If you have a new format, to make a new deck, work with that new deck. If keep the old deck, let them. It's kind of like a process, right? Like almost an evolutionary algorithm. Like you play with both and see which one ends up working better. And if you end up liking more than the other, if one ends up working better for you, giving you better results, you keep that one. And you can phase out the old one, or just ignore it, eventually get rid of it, whatever. But don't be too worked up. Like I'm messy now. I'm like, yeah, I've got some cards that I've got some things that are done a new way, and others that are done a different way, and they may or may not be in new decks. Like sometimes there's no point having them in a new deck. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, and it's just that's okay. It's okay for that to be a bit jumbled, a bit organic, kind of like the British Constitution, which is ironic because I guess the UK hasn't looked like a good example of political stability since about 2016. But the point remains, it's an interesting structure. Like it's just organically there's no final form or some perfect place somewhere where it exists. The British Constitution kind of is spread out. Everything from the Magna Carta to precedents to, is there a Bill of Rights? I'm not sure if there is or not. I don't know much about politics, but the point of the story is it's just messy. It's just it's there and it's kind of diffuse, but it works out. You have this constitutional monarchy where people kind of have rights. I mean, there are cameras everywhere, and they're trying to make kitchen knives illegal, so there's that. But the point remains, it's been, by and large, compared even to someone. Oh my gosh! Thank you so much for watching this. Please go to my Patreon to watch the rest, okay? And I'm gonna talk like this the whole time because this is my new voice. This is how I am now. This is how I am. Thank you for watching this. Seriously though, please go to Patreon to watch the rest because capitalism is a thing. Thank you. Capitalism is a thing. I can pronounce words.